Alright guys, we're talking about positive and negative intervals today. So let's take some notes before we dive into our first example. So for our positive interval, that's where on the x-axis that the graph is above the x-axis. And then for my negative interval, that's where on the x-axis that we are below the x-axis. Okay, so what we're going to do next is identify our positive and negative intervals for this first example. Okay, so if I'm looking at my positive, again, that's where it's above the x-axis. So I can see that my graph is above the x-axis right here in this green area. So we can see that that positive interval starts at -2, and it goes all the way to infinity. Okay, as for our negative interval, we are looking where it's below the x-axis. So that's down here, this red chunk. So we can say my negative interval is going from -infinity all the way to -2. Remember, these two numbers should be the same. If they're not, you did something wrong. So let's go ahead and look at our second example and do that same process. We got to look where is it above the x-axis for my positive interval and where is it below for my negative interval. So for my positive interval, we can see we are above the x-axis all through right here. So this side we know is -infinity. So my positive interval is going from -infinity to -2. As for my negative interval, we can see it starts at -2 and is below the x-axis all the way to infinity. So -2 to infinity. So let's go ahead and take a look at our next problem. And for this problem, we're going to have to graph our equation first before we can find our positive and negative intervals. So there's a couple ways you can do that. You could do that on Desmos.com. You could graph your point slope form, but what I'm going to do is change it into slope intercept form and then graph it from there. So I'm going to take this 2/3 and I'm going to distribute it. So 2/3 times 3 just cancels my 3's out. So I have 2x. And then I'm going to go 2/3 times -6. So 2 times 6 gets me 12. Divided by 3 gets me 4. So -4. So I got y minus 2 equals 2x minus 4. And I'm going to add my 2 over here. So plus 2. So my equation now is y equals 2x minus 2. Let's go ahead and graph that on our coordinate plane. So remember, I'm going to start at my b, which is -2 on my y-axis. And then I'm going to take my slope going up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. And I'm going to create that line. Okay, I've got my line on my coordinate plane, so now my goal is to analyze that line and figure out where am I above the x-axis for my positive and where am I below for my negative. So for my positive, we can see I'm starting at 1 and I'm going all the way to infinity. So positive will be 1 to infinity. And as for negative, so below my x-axis, we can see I'm in this red chunk down here. So from -infinity all the way to 1. Again, these numbers should be the same. If they're not, you did something wrong. Okay, we got a couple more problems left, but these we're looking at quadratics. Okay, so we're going to have a couple different intervals rather than just one of each. So if I'm looking at this quadratic here, we can see I'm above my axis, my x-axis, between this little chunk here. So my positive interval is going to go from -4 to -2, because that's the part of the graph that's above my x-axis. As for my negative interval, we're looking at where is it below the x-axis, and we can see it's below here and here. So I'm going to have two intervals for my negative. I'm going to be going from -infinity all the way to -4 and -2 all the way to infinity. Because if this keeps going, it would go to infinity, and if that keeps going, it would go towards -infinity. Okay, so we'll have two intervals for that problem. Okay, as for my next, we're going to look and see where is it above the x-axis. Well, keep in mind, if my x-axis is all the way up here, okay, my graph is not above it. So my positive interval is just going to be none. Okay, and my negative interval, the entire thing is under my x-axis, the entire thing. So from -infinity to infinity is my negative interval. Okay, we got 2 more left. So let's see. If I'm looking at my third graph, we can see my positive interval being above my x-axis in this chunk here. So you can see it's not really a perfect cut through with the x-axis. It's kind of between some numbers. So just kind of guesstimated it out. So for positive, we could say 1.2 and then maybe to 2.8. Okay, something around there. And then you can notice that your negative intervals are below my x-axis. We'll have 2 of them again. So we'll go from negative infinity, because this is negative infinity, all the way to 1.2. And then again from 2.8 to infinity, because if this keeps going, it would go to infinity. All right, 1 more left. We're doing great. So our last graph, if we're looking for our positive interval, again, that's where it's above my x-axis. And if my x-axis is here, you can see the entire thing is above our x-axis. So my positive interval is going to be from negative infinity to infinity, the entire thing. As for my negative interval, there isn't anything under my x-axis. So my negative interval is going to be none. But I hope you have a great day. See you later.